Pepsi Cola begins here. Raw sweetness, measured before it ever become a drink. Every cut is controlled because consistency is the first ingredient.
Before Pepsi Cola is formulated, the raw input is counted, down to the kilogram.
Tight.
Secure the load because the process can't afford surprises. Quality starts at the source, so Pepsi Cola stays the same every time. Remove the grit now, so only clean sweetness moves forward. Even water is verified, because Pepsi Cola depends on purity from the first rinse. A simple rinse, yet it protects every step that follows.
From loose harvest to controlled bulk, Pepsi Cola moves as a managed material. Staging is choreography, so Pepsi Cola's inputs arrive in sequence. Safety isn't a step, it's the condition for every step. Lock down tight, because the journey must not change the load.
Once it rolls out, the clock starts. Fresh inputs on the move for Pepsi Cola. The harvest is complete. Now Pepsi Cola's journey heads to the facility. Now it'll motion and timing. Raw input headed straight toward Pepsi Cola's heart. Miles disappear, but control stays locked on the load for Pepsi Cola. Logistics is quiet precision, so Pepsi Cola arrives exactly as planned. The route is fixed, the rules are strict. Pepsi Cola runs on repeatable decisions. As the landscape industrializes, Pepsi Cola's supply chain tightens its grip. Every ramp and turn is rehearsed because Pepsi Cola's timing is engineered.
Permission to enter is earned. Pepsi Cola doesn't cross thresholds without proof. Inside the perimeter, everything becomes process. Pepsi Cola is now minutes from the line.
Oh, slow.
The road ends here. Next, Pepsi Cola enters the factory and becomes manufacturing. Past this door, Pepsi Cola stops being cargo and becomes a controlled process. The bay wakes up because Pepsi Cola only enters where the factory is ready.
One lock, one signal, so Pepsi Cola moves forward without risk.
The seal breaks once. Then the factory takes responsibility for Pepsi Cola's inputs.
Verification comes before movement because Pepsi Cola is managed, not guessed. From dock to lane, Pepsi Cola's raw stream enters the plant's rhythm.
One label, one status. Pepsi Cola advances only when the system says go.
Order on the floor becomes order in the product. Pepsi Cola is built on alignment. Before any machine runs, the people prove they belong on the Pepsi Cola line. The factory has accepted the load. Next, Pepsi Cola's raw inputs get cleaned and controlled. Here, Pepsi Cola starts with a clean slate, washed before anything else happens.
Washing is mechanical honesty. Remove what doesn't belong in Pepsi Cola.
Moisture is managed because Pepsi Cola can't begin with guesswork.
Clean water stays clean, so Pepsi Cola's process stays stable. Uniform coverage means uniform results.
Pepsi Cola starts with even cleaning. Human eyes still matter because Pepsi Cola protects the line from contamination. Metal has no place here. Pepsi Cola filters risk before it travels further.
Sorting is structure, so Pepsi Cola receives a predictable feed. This rinse is the final reset. Clean feed, clean path for Pepsi Cola. Covered transfer keeps control intact. Pepsi Cola moves forward without exposure. Hold, then release. Pepsi Cola advances only when the line is balanced.
Metered feed is discipline because Pepsi Cola's consistency starts before the real processing begins. Cleaned and sorted, now Pepsi Cola enters the core of transformation.
Now the factory takes over. Pepsi Cola moves from cleaned input to controlled extraction.
Break it down evenly because Pepsi Cola demands a predictable base. Water meets material, and Pepsi Cola's extraction pathway begins.
No air, no interruptions. Pepsi Cola flows only when the line is fully alive.
This is the release, raw juice extracted under force, built for Pepsi Cola's consistency.
Strain the big pieces so Pepsi Cola starts clean at the liquid stage. Separation is patience. Pepsi Cola gets clearer before it gets transformed.
Spin out what doesn't belong, so Pepsi Cola's liquid base becomes stable. Temperature locks the chemistry. Pepsi Cola stays predictable when the liquid stays controlled. Measure first, dose second. Pepsi Cola's balance is never improvised. Clean lines make clean product. Pepsi Cola only continues when sanitation is proven. Extraction is complete. Now Pepsi Cola moves toward the transformation that defines the drink. Pepsi Cola Heel, next stage. This is where control becomes flavor. Pepsi Cola is built by precision, not luck. The system asks, the line answers. Pepsi Cola only blends when identity is proven. Foundation first. Pepsi Cola starts with a stable base before anything is added. Sweetness isn't poured, it's engineered, so Pepsi Cola tastes the same every batch. Color is controlled chemistry. Pepsi Cola's look is as consistent as its taste.
Balance is everything. Pepsi Cola finds its edge by exact pH, not guesswork.
Flavor enters sealed and tracked because Pepsi Cola is protected at every connection.
Homogeneity is proof. Pepsi Cola doesn't move on until the blend looks and behaves right. Now the line thinks in real time. Pepsi Cola moves only when every signal agrees.
Automation is discipline. Pepsi Cola won't flow unless every safeguard is true.
The numbers must match because Pepsi Cola is controlled by measurement, not feel.
Remove the air and you remove instability. Pepsi Cola gets smoother before high speed.
The trap stays clean, so Pepsi Cola stays pure as it accelerates. Sensors are the factory's senses. Pepsi Cola stays steady when the network sees everything. Even the warnings are rehearsed. Pepsi Cola runs safe because it's tested on purpose.
The line proves its exits, so Pepsi Cola never goes the wrong way.
Cold is control. Pepsi Cola chills now so carbonation behaves later. This is the snap and lift. Pepsi Cola takes on its signature bite under exact control. Now the liquid is finished. Pepsi Cola must be handled with surgical precision.
Before Pepsi Cola meets the bottle must be perfectly prepared.
Clean containers are non-negotiable. Pepsi Cola can't be precise in a dirty shell.
At speed, precision becomes everything. Pepsi Cola is measured in milliseconds now. This is the moment of capture. Pepsi Cola goes from process to product. One cap, one seal. Pepsi Cola's freshness depends on this exact contact. Seal it right, and it lasts. Pepsi Cola is protected by measured torque. Branding isn't decoration. Pepsi Cola must be readable, aligned, and exact. The smallest marks carry the biggest accountability. Pepsi Cola is traceable by design.
Speed is nothing without control. Pepsi Cola enters the gate where every bottle must prove itself.
Every gram matters. Pepsi Cola is verified, not assumed.
The seal is the promise. Pepsi Cola checks it at the microscopic level. If it can't hold pressure, it can't ship. Pepsi Cola earns its integrity here.
One bottle steps aside, so the whole Pepsi Cola batch can be trusted.
Chemistry speaks quietly. Pepsi Cola listens through instruments, not opinions.
Appearance is a specification. Pepsi Cola must look as exact as it tastes.
Keep a witness. Pepsi Cola stores proof in case questions come later.
Quality isn't a station. It's a behavior, repeated across the Pepsi Cola line.
Release is earned. Pepsi Cola now moves to packaging with quality signed in.
Precision begins the moment bottles meet their future cases.
Structure matters. Every case is built to protect its contents.
Sealed tight, because protection continues beyond the bottle.
Traceability turns every case into a documented record.
If it can't be tracked, it doesn't move forward.
Flow is managed, never rushed, never stalled.
Machines don't guess.
They execute exactly as programmed. Stability is engineered, layer by layer.
Completion isn't assumed, it's confirmed.
Protection extends from bottle to pallet. Containment finished, nothing shifts from here.
One label carries the story of thousands of bottles. Digital custody begins the moment it's scanned.
Movement without chaos. Automation keeps order.
Scale only works when organization leads. Stored with intention, not just stacked.
Accuracy lives in double checks.
Demand speaks, and the system listens.
Every journey has a return path. Shipping starts with readiness. The final container awaits.
One last check before departure. Stability matters, even on the road. Security completes responsibility. Paperwork moves as precisely as product. Quality leaves the building, but not the process. From factory to everywhere.
The last mile begins.
Presentation carries the final promise.
Trust ends in choice. Quality speaks instantly. The result of thousands of decisions. The moment everything worked toward.
Crafted. Checked. Delivered. Quality never leaves the loop. This is Pepsi Cola.